This is probably going to be the most negative Battlefield 6 video I've uploaded yet. I'm going to try to keep myself contained, but let's just say when I think of this update and when I read the patch notes, that the words that come to mind are disgust, betrayal, disappointment, confusion, and fumble. So, with all that being said, let's get into this video where we go over the Season 2 patch notes, link in the description if you want to follow along, as well as the link to my Twitch. If you enjoy the content, hit the sub button, greatly appreciated, and of course hit the like button as well. Just to clear this up, no, the update has not dropped yet. The update comes out when Season 2 releases, which is on February 17th. And now allow me to set the stage for this Season 2 update and why it is so gut-wrenchingly disappointing to me. Battlefield 6 right now is on a massive downturn, right? There's a lot of pressure on this update delivering because people are very disappointed with the amount of content we're receiving in Season 2. So the only potential saving grace for many people is this very update and the changes that it delivers. Based on the community update that was posted before the patch notes, we got a brief overview of, some of the changes that are coming in the patch notes, but we didn't have the full details. Some of the changes they detailed sounded pretty good, but upon reading these patch notes, oh my god in heaven, I don't even know where to begin, guys. So first of all, I suppose I will go over the good stuff first for the, the hopium increase, inject the hopium directly into my veins, and then, for the doomers, the later half of the video will be for you. But I would be lying if I didn't tell you guys up front, most of this video is going to be pretty fucking negative, because that's just the reality of the situation. So, one of the positive things is they announced a recoil compensation change. They essentially appear to have removed that weird mechanic that messes with your aiming while you're shooting. It would provide resistance depending on the direction you're tracking a target, also depending on the recoil pattern. The TLDR on this is, I think, based off their description, gunplay should feel better. And then when it comes to the rest of the good stuff they did, it is mainly bug fixes, and there are a ton of bug fixes in this update. But even the best bug fixes in this update aren't the ones that I think a lot of people would expect to be in the update. For instance, I Control-F'd these patch notes, looked everywhere. I cannot find a single reference to them fixing the black screen bug or the scoreboard bug. In terms of the best bugs they fixed in this update, they finally fixed the supply pouch bug that would cause you to randomly throw one in a gunfight, getting you killed. They also fixed the ladder bug that allowed you to fling yourself across the map. I will list more individual notable changes in the later parts of this video, but I really want to get into the most disappointing aspect of this update, and that is the fact that this update is a straight downgrade to the gameplay of Battlefield 6 for no reason whatsoever. Let's start off with what they did to the movement in this update. I'm just going to say this up front. Battlefield 6's movement right now does not need to be changed or nerfed in any way, shape, or form. Any nerf to any aspect of the movement at all is completely and totally unwarranted and will only make gameplay worse, seeing as Battlefield 6 already has a massive gameplay depth problem. I'm not asking for buffs, I'm just asking them not to nerf the movement further, which is exactly what they did in this update, for no fucking reason. The first thing they did that I read as a nerf is they said, improved predictability and consistency of player movement with new acceleration curves instead of linear accelerations. Those updated accelerations retain responsive movement while allowing micro-adjustments of movement, i.e. to peek corners, and ensure that other players' movement looks more correct to improve the quality and predictability of gunfights. Okay, so reading that first time around, it doesn't sound like much, but you need some context and some history of DICE's patches to fully understand what this means. Whenever DICE starts talking about predictability and consistency when it comes to movement, 99% of the time, you can guarantee it's a nerf. And the way this sounds to me is it sounds like they adjusted the acceleration curves of strafing itself, meaning just moving side to side in a gunfight. It sounds like you're going to be more sluggish moving side to side. It was already slow as fuck, so I'm not sure why they decided to make it even slower. All that's going to do is make the game worse. The next thing they did is they reduced the maximum slide impulse length by 25% to improve balance and readability during fast movement. Again, completely unwarranted, completely unnecessary. The slide in Battlefield 6 is mediocre as fuck. It is nowhere near as good as the slide present in Battlefield 5 or in 2042. It is the second worst Battlefield slide we have ever had. The only one that's worse than it is post-nerf BF1 slide, which is unusable. Again, I need to emphasize this. Battlefield 6 suffers from lack of gameplay depth, and what do they decide to do? Nerf even more gameplay depth out of the game, further reducing the skill ceiling and closing the skill gap. What the fuck are they doing? Under no circumstances is any movement nerf in any regard justified. The movement is fine. But the movement changes aren't just the only thing that is upsetting me about this update. It's the combination of the movement changes with the changes they're making to some of the weapons. They are nerfing the movement as well as making it easier to hit shots at range with a lot of weapons in the game. Even though one of Battlefield 6's largest problems right now is the fact that a lot of weapons are just simply too easy to shoot and hit targets at range with. Just look at some of the changes. For the B36A4, L85, M433, and the SOR, some of these weapons are some of the best long-range assault rifles in the game. They reduced the recoil randomness and improved consistency and effectiveness at longer ranges, even though these are some of the most consistent long-range assault rifles in the game already. Looking down the list, you can see they did the exact same thing for some of the light machine guns like the L110, M123K, and even carbines like the M277. The M277 is actually really hilarious because it's one of the most insane mid-range weapons in the game, and they reduced its recoil as well as making it easier to hit shots with at range. I do not fucking understand. This is the opposite direction of what they should be doing. They should be leaving the movement alone and focusing on increasing the gameplay depth of Battlefield 6 in order to fix all of these problems you see present in the gameplay, and they are making the gameplay worse. And I think the worst part about this stuff for me is that if you're actually playing the game and you're aware of like the balance of everything, and you're a pretty decent player that just pays attention, these changes are just so crystal clear to you. Like, all you need to do is reduce muzzle velocities, don't destroy the fucking movement, improve the netcode, work on the visibility, improve the audio, and just try to add the best maps you can possibly add. And we would just be fine. But no, we have to go through these setbacks that DICE makes for themselves. So the TLDR of these combining factors, being the movement nerfs and what they're doing with the gunplay, is basically, instead of trying to help Battlefield 6's gameplay depth, which is one of the largest problems in the game, they are further reducing the gameplay depth by nerfing movement mechanics that don't need to be nerfed and making weapons easier to beam with at range. It's fucking unbelievable. Moving on to talking about some more individual changes in this patch. In the vehicle section, they did make a pretty good change. They disabled angled-based damage mitigation on the Traverser Mark II to make sure it takes more consistent damage from RPGs. In the weapon section, they adjusted in-world spotting when firing a weapon without a suppressor or flash hider, reducing it from 75 to 54 meters, so a very slight in-world spotting nerf, but then just under it, a confusing decision yet again, they adjusted minimap spotting range when firing suppressed weapons, increasing it from 15 to 21 meters. DICE, you don't nerf suppressors to make them less prevalent. You nerf spotting or remove the in-world spotting to make suppressors less prevalent. But moving on to some minor sniper nerfs, they nerfed the Miniscout's muzzle velocity from a blistering 880 meters per second to a slightly less blistering 800 meters per second, but that's still too high as a base muzzle velocity, especially with extended barrel being in the game. But a very welcome change, they updated the rangefinder on sniper rifles so that it doesn't instantaneously zero to the range that you aim at. It will have a short delay before it zeroes. Moving on to more of the individual weapon changes, I already mentioned some of the disappointing and confusing ones they made to some of the assault rifles, but they did make some good ones to some very overpowered weapons, namely the SCW-10. They have increased the recoil to reduce its effectiveness, which is exactly what they should have done. Moving on to the maps and modes section, allow me to be the very first person to point out there are no mentions of any breakthrough changes in the maps and mode section after they completely fucked breakthrough in that one update. Go figure. The most notable changes in this section are minor bug fixes to some map irritations, but I just want to point out some of the bug fixes are for specific maps like Manhattan Bridge and Empire State, but the most irritating aspects of these maps were not addressed. For instance, Manhattan Bridge, the rooftops. People want the rooftops to become out of bounds because there are no infantry accessible ways to contest people camping on top of the rooftops, and they didn't make the rooftops out of bounds in this patch, even though they specifically addressed Manhattan Bridge. Furthermore, they added the scout helicopter to the following maps, which includes Manhattan Bridge, but there's no specification as to whether or not they added the scout helicopter and removed the attack helicopter. So fully anticipate to play Manhattan Bridge and die to both the attack helicopter and the scout helicopter. Moving on down the line, there are a ton of UI and HUD bug fixes as well as portal additions and bug fixes. Again, the patch notes are linked in the description if you want to read those in its entirety. Take my word for it, there are just a shit ton of bug fixes in those sections. But some more notable changes are actually to audio, and these are truly good changes, okay? Number one, they improved the audibility of enemy ziplines and parachutes. That is extremely welcome. They also improved audio obstruction for vehicles, weapons, and soldier footsteps by refining the sound source positioning, and they improved clarity of distant enemy footsteps as well. However, this is a double-edged sword, because the more you nerf the movement, and the more you increase the audibility of footsteps, the more nobody moves. So get ready for Camperfield 6. And the last section of this update has to do with a bunch of RedSec fixes. However, this is still disappointing for RedSec, and I'm just going to let Rogue, who is probably the #1 RedSec streamer, tell you why this update is disappointing for RedSec. He said there is no reconnect option being added to RedSec, no KTS nerf, which is the major meta weapon in RedSec. They did not fix the exploit for the latter, no helicopter gun balance, no ping improvements, no recon drone thermal nerf, no fix for an exploit that gives you wall hacks, no late spawning loot fix, no explanation of weapon/career XP for RedSec, no ranked mode, no solos, no Elite Series tournament, no redeploy fix for squad play, no interaction queue speed improvement, no parachute bind fix, no black screen bug fix, no pickup animation fix, and finally, no rocket flare disappear fix. I'm sure you guys can understand the gist of it. The TLDR is, this is a disappointing update, and I'm tired of talking about it. So I'm going to end the video off by saying this. Battlefield 6's problems are crystal clear if you truly understand the game right now. This update does exactly the opposite of what they should be doing in key areas of the game. The movement nerfs in any capacity are completely unwarranted. Nothing about the movement is overpowered. If you think the slide is overpowered, uninstall the fucking game. When it comes to the gunplay and just the general gameplay depth of Battlefield 6, they are further reducing the gameplay depth. The gunplay of BF6 is already too easy. The ranged hit rate, or how easy it is to hit shots at range, is already too high. They should not be making ranged effectiveness for weapons better. They should be focusing on increasing the skill gap within the gunplay and basically adding more spread, making you burst more, adding limb multipliers, making headshots matter, reducing muzzle velocities, etc., etc. Overall, this update feels like a massive betrayal, and it's pretty much confirming to me that Battlefield 6 is very unlikely to ever reach its peak, which is exceptionally disappointing. And I know that might sound harsh, but honestly, I don't really think it is. I've been waiting for them to release a half-decent Battlefield game for a long time, and seeing them fumble it right before my very eyes is disgusting. So I'm going to shut this video off, and I hope you guys have a great night. Thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate you guys. And I will see you guys in the next video.